So what has been happening since the kind of big, what should we call that? Upstir,
Changes.
a big unexpected change. And if you've ever read Who Moved My Cheese, you know that book, Who Moved My Cheese?
I need to.
It's a book about two sets of mice,
right,
and how they dealt with change differently, and how two perished and two thrived because they dealt with change differently.
Right.
So I'm not afraid of change anymore because a lot of great things come of it.
Of course.
This was a little scary, this change that all of a sudden happened, because there was a major shift in personnel, key personnel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that happens and there's a dust up, you start seeing things that you didn't see before. So just tell me, I'm curious, what has happened since, essentially your number two guy leaving unexpectedly.
West Coast, yeah.
And looking at it from a good thing, because change can be good, which it sounds like things are coming along very nicely.
Yeah.
Tell me what's happened. What's going on at West Coast Exotic Cars? Welcome to Down and Dirty with Michael Julian. On the show, we're getting raw, real, and leaving no stone unturned. Each week, I sit down with some truly remarkable people who have overcome adversity in their lives. My guests are warriors who took their pain and turned it into power. So get comfortable, because we're about to get down and dirty.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, as you know, Mike, there's always lots happening at West Coast. I mean, it's, the business has grown so much in the last 10 years, 10-year anniversary this year, which is cool.
I can't believe it's
now
been
10 years. It's wild. It was this little tiny, single building, 4,000 square feet, to now there's 75,000, right, and employees and the whole thing. But, back to your question, I mean, Hunter was with me for, almost 8 years or so with West Coast, with me a long time, helped me build the company, kind of right-hand man, side by side for years. And as this thing grew and grew and grew, he made a change about 60 days ago. All of a sudden, email out of the blue, like, "Hey, I'm going off. I'm doing something different," right?
And that
bit unexpected.
Yeah.
Unexpected. Yeah, and in life, especially in business, as you continue to try to succeed in business, there's lots of changes that happen.
Yeah.
And they're not all predictable.
Right.
This is one of those ones where it wasn't predicted,
and it was no small change. This is a major, organizational chart change.
Right, for sure. And prior to this change with him, I had brought in Jordan, months back. He's been with me 4 or 5 months now, and Jordan's operations manager. So we've had some changes going on, and our CEO group has prompted some of those. But always in business, you're trying to, like you're trying to grow, you're trying to build your brand. You're always trying to tweak it, right? It's like, I always view it like, it's like you're in a bowling alley and you're bowling the ball, and the ball either goes in the gutter or it stays in the lane, and you try to keep the bumpers up and keep the thing in the lane, right? That's kind of the way I view business. And, this was a big change, but, we had other changes happening as well, bringing in Jordan, and ops manager, and we brought in, compliance things with California, and we've kind of changing some management. Most recently, we brought in a second person to handle the accounting part of things. So we've had a lot of changes, but obviously this was the biggest change personnel-wise that, I've had since we built the company, right? I mean, very few people, leave West Coast Exotic Cars, and especially a key person like he was, to see him leave was a bit of a shock and a surprise, and like, oh, everybody in the company is going,
wow. And a little stressful, because it's a sudden empty hole that was filled with somebody that knew what they were doing and trusted, and then all of a sudden there's a hole there, and it's like, oh shit, what are we going to do now?
Trusted guy, been with me a long time, did a great job for the company, kind of a diehard guy, and from my perspective, I was surprised that someone would invest that much time into something and then make a wholesale change so unexpectedly. But again, life has to move on. West Coast Exotic Cars have to move on, right? So so the last 60, 90 days has been kind of a regroup. Business has slowed down anyway. The market in general in the car world, whether it be exotic cars or whatever, is come back anyway in the last 90 days. So
it's come back. It's getting better then?
It's been slower the last 90 days. I mean, it's really slowed up. We went back.
Why? What's causing it?
I mean, I think in general, all the same issues that even general public is facing, right? High prices of everything, high cost of living, especially in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Gas prices, food prices, all this stuff. we do sell exotic cars, but we also sell, cars for people that are successful that want to buy $100,000 or $200,000 car. It definitely has an effect on those people.
Sure.
Obviously, with all the political stuff happening in the world and election year and all that happening, I think the last 60 days, people have kind of hit the brakes and just said, hey, I'm going to pause.
To wait and see what happens.
I'm waiting to see what happens, right? But interestingly enough, as we're making all these changes, I try to stay as positive as I can. You have to in business, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter what happens in the election, no matter what the outcome is, we need to all survive, right? Our businesses need to keep going. So we're tweaking and we're making changes, and I'm making changes because we've got some things that we needed to fix and correct and get on course, but also changes to keep growing the business. I'm not the type of guy like you or, hey, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to wait this thing out too. I don't do that. Like business is slower. Let's fix it. What are we missing? Okay, we're not buying the right cars. Are we buying the right cars? Are we, the benefit of the market slowing down in the last 90 days is that now the plus and the minus. The minus is I had a bunch of cars that I owned. The market comes back. You cut your losses, right? You take your losses, you move away from those cars, and they suck. I lost $50,000 on a car a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
The market shifts. And in our world, when you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, you get a market shift on one car and it changes fast.
Now, when you're talking about cars, just for the sake of my audience who doesn't know yet who you are, what we're going to talk about, give us a short list of some of the vehicles you have and the kind of prices we're talking.
Right. Okay. I mean, we've got Ford Raptors, but we also have, Lamborghini Aventador Ultimates, $800,000 cars. We've got a Porsche Carrera GT $1 million plus. We've had some McLaren Senna's $1 million plus.
You've got the Mercedes, G-Ride, is that what they're called?
Yeah, like a G-Wagon.
G-Wagon.
We got a 4x4 Square that we just sold. Those which is cool, lifted, big wheels.
You had the Tesla truck Beast.
Cybertrucks. Love them or hate them.
You had the Beast though, didn't you? That's on steroids, basically.
Yep.
Yeah,
the Beast has got the additional electric motor and like 1,000 horsepower,
huge
big
tire
wheels and the whole deal.
Yeah, it looks like a Tonka truck.
We sold a whole bunch of them.
Yeah,
love them or hate them. Some people love them. A lot of people hate them, but we sold a whole bunch.
You got Ferraris.
Ferraris.
I bought my Ferrari from you,
thank you,
which my pleasure.
Yeah,
thanks for the
stuff.
Big fat discount right off the top when I said, how much is this? He said, well, it's this, but for you, it's this.
Right.
I said,
there you go.
All right. And you've consigned some of my vehicles, my Vet, my Harley.
Yeah.
So you're doing all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And your facility, you're getting rid of the rental spaces because you want that space for yourself, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's 75,000 square feet. I built 10 suites around the building. In the beginning, 4 years ago, I bought this building in the middle of COVID. Like, what am I doing? Bang my head against the wall, buying a big building like this. But I did build 10 suites and I rented out 4 of those suites in the early days.
Yeah.
They're 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. So I had a bunch of rental income coming. And as West Coast has grown and grown and grown, now, we take these suites and as the leases expire, we go, okay, we're going to expand service department. We're going to do customer service work. We're going to do storage for clients. We're going to do paint protection film, the clear film. It's a big deal.
Sure.
Expand the detail department. We added a VIP lounge, which we need to get going on. Pretty cool.
Yes, I wish you would. I would come down and visit you more if you had a nice VIP lounge, especially if you've got that racing simulator.
I got 3 simulators set up.
Okay,
badass, good stuff. So anyway, as the business grows, and I've kind of not renewed the leases and taken over this whole building, which is again back to these last 90 days, probably not the right thing to do. It hasn't felt like the right thing to let all these leases go and no more rental income, but I mean, we're making it work, right? We're expanding each department and we're growing. I want to have, so if car sales are slow, you got a service department, so you got a few different, detail department, we'll do customer details. We'll do the paint protection film. There's a lot of talk lately about us doing a rental car program.
You've been talking about that for a while, which I would really like.
Yeah. It'd be super cool. So let's say that there's 6 cars in this rental car fleet and there's a Rolls Royce and a
Lamborghini,
Ferrari,
McLaren,
and Porsche,
Yeah.
And how cool would that be?
Really
right?
cool.
You can come and say, hey, I'm just going to go rent a car for the weekend, for the week or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially with this, Temecula's growing and wine country and all that stuff that's going on. Maybe even a lifted Jeep. I don't know. But so we've got a suite designed for the rental car. And now it's just a matter of, putting up the capital and getting the city's approved it, West Coast Exotic Rentals.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to happen in 2025. We're getting closer and closer and closer.
That'll be huge.
Be great, right? Especially for, if your buddy comes to town and, hey, it'd be cool to drive a Lamborghini for 2 days, right?
It'd be really cool.
Or we do these car drives, to Paula or whatever, and somebody wants to rent a car for the weekend. Badass.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning. Let's find out about Eric Curran.
Rewind.
Where he started and how he got to where he is today and all the cool stuff in between.
Yeah. I mean, going way back, I grew up in Massachusetts. My family's still there. My parents, my sister, kids, husband, they're all still there.
How far from Boston?
Western Mass, so a couple hours.
Okay.
On the other side of the state.
Boston's one of my favorite cities in the world.
Boston's a blast.
Love it.
It's a blast. Go back, Fenway Park.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's the greatest. Anyway, so grew up. I went to high school there. Went to college there. Grew up in Western Mass, and I was a crazy kid. Did all sorts of crazy dumb shit for years. I mean, it's a small South Deerfield, Massachusetts, where Yankee Candle. You ever hear Yankee Candle? The big candle company, Michael Kittredge. Anyway, UMass Amherst were that area.
Okay.
But anyway, when I was a kid, of course, my dad had we had a Volvo dealership, so I had an old beater Volvo station wagon that I drove in high school, and I put big off-road tires on it, and I just drove that thing in the woods. I mean, it's kind of a farm, hillbilly kind of backyard, small town, place. It was like there was 4 towns to make up 75 kids in my graduating class.
Wow.
I mean, it's like a little towns. So anyway, I mean, we're all crazy back then. I mean, we'd go out and, take our cars in the woods, and we'd take our pickup trucks and fill them full of fill all the wood pallets in the back and make big fires in the woods. And man, it was, and that's when I really learned that I really wanted to drive cars, but it was in the woods, like off-roading, right? I was freaking nuts. I mean, and barely made it through that era of my life. It's a funny story. I mean, it's sad and funny at the same time, but this kid, Tim, we called him Homer in high school, got to be a really close friend of mine, had a really troubled, past with his family. His parents broke up, and it was ugly, but we used to do everything, snowmobile, off-road, bike, whatever. So he's on his snowmobile crossing the road and gets hit by a car, shatters his hip, right? T-boned by a car on a snowmobile, breaks his hip, right? This kid's so crazy. Here we are 2 weeks later. He's like, Eric, I'm fine. I got a cast. I'm good. Let's go out drinking in the woods. All right. So we take my truck, and he's in the passenger seat, and here we are in the middle of the woods with all our buddies drinking and drinking. And back then, like, we'd drink our brains out and drive, which was dumb. And finally, we're driving home from that party, and I passed out the wheel and drove the thing right off the side of this hill and just T-boned a tree. And we both hit our heads in the windshield. He's already in a full leg cast, right? So here we are in the middle of the woods at 2:00 in the morning, wasted, right? And I'm like, hey, buddy, let's just try to sleep this thing off. Like, okay. But he's already in pain.
Sure.
We just, we're all bloody, hit the windshield, but it's dark. Anyway, we try to sleep it off for an hour or so. And then he's like, hey, buddy, I'm in so much pain. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Ran to the nearest house I could find, knocked on the door, bloody, beat up. Ambulance came, and long story short, they put us on stretchers and they brought us to the hospital, and it was a mess. It was scary, right? This kid is already he's in a full leg cast, hit by a car 2 weeks before, and he had a cast, but his toes were exposed. I remember all the glass in the windshield in his toes, and they're picking the glass out. Nasty. I still got scars on my forehead from the windshield. I mean, it was crazy. And I thought back then you're invincible, right?
Yeah.
I can drive a car, truck, whatever. And anyway, you mix some drinking involved, and that was an ugly time, but that's what we did. We partied in the woods. That was old, South Deerfield. There's nothing out there. It's cornfields. And
so what? So that it's not a mistake, you learned something which made it a lesson. What did you learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I learned you're not invincible, and no matter how crazy you think, and no matter how good driver I was or wasn't at the time, I mean, we're an idiot, really. I mean, we had probably partied and done that 100 times and really got that one wrong. And luckily we both walked away from it. I mean, sad story, years later, the kid, my friend Tim Homer, finally quit drinking and sobered up and got engaged to a girl and had a baby. And years later, worked on a construction site and got hit in the back of the head with a backhoe and killed him.
Oh, God.
So we went through, but the kid used up all of his 9 lives for years.
He lived hard and
lived
strong
and he partied, but he finally got his shit together, which was really sad to see that all go down.
Yeah, that's
anyway.
Funny twist of fate, isn't it?
Crazy.
Not so funny.
I remember my parents being like, "Oh no, you're not going out with Homer again tonight, are you?" They were so scared because they knew it was wild and crazy back then, you know. But obviously here I am today, obviously a different world than when it was then. But that's the beginning of the Massachusetts story.
Yeah. Well, I can say that growing up in northern Colorado in a somewhat similar setting with somewhat similar circumstances, I've got a lot of stories the same.
Right.
And all I can think of is I am blessed to have made it through there alive.
Right.
I don't know how that stupidity did not pay off in the negative.
Right.
But certainly
talk about it.
Yeah. Learn some lessons.
Yeah, no doubt.
And hopefully
I can't even imagine when I think back on the stories and all the craziness that we did that like today's kids, like we have Live 360, right?
Yeah.
So exactly what your kid it is.
Sure.
I mean, back then it was a free for all.
Sure.
We're partying in the woods till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Drinking and driving home.
Yeah.
I mean, your parents have no idea what you're in the middle of the woods somewhere. Do you imagine?
No clue.
What you're, today it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But you're right, Mike. I mean, I think we probably learned a lot from those days.
Yeah. And hopefully we can impart those lessons onto our children so that they don't learn the hard way. So high school, when did you leave Massachusetts? You went to college in Massachusetts as well.
Springfield Tech. Yep. Just a local college, not far away from where I grew up. I mean, when I graduated high school, I got right into the car dealership world with my father. My father my parents grew up in Boston, went to school in Boston. Mom was a nurse. Dad was he's a car guy, still a car guy. I mean, but he was a Ferrari mechanic for years in Boston. So, he learned a trade and just got huge into cars for years. And oddly enough, he got into Volvos later in life, which led us to having a Volvo dealership in Western Massachusetts. So when I graduated from high school and I really wanted to learn business and I did some business management stuff, funny enough, my dad and I would fly to California from Massachusetts and take a bunch of Management Success was a company that did a lot of automotive related speaking to clients and really teaching you the automotive trade management, that type of thing. So I did that with my father for years, and we had this Volvo dealership, and I kind of jumped both feet into the Volvo store. And it was challenging because my dad at the time had a it was just a little service shop working on Volvos, which Volvo was a great brand in Massachusetts. I mean, the safe Volvo.
No, I owned one. They were great cars.
Great. Safe, reliable, boxy. Yeah. Boxy but safe, they used to say, right? Yeah. Great car from Massachusetts. So anyway, so I got into running it, and my dad had a partner at the time, and we bought out his partner, and he and I just charged forward with it. But at the same time, we always loved racing. So he and I, back in the early 90s, took an old Volvo, 71 Volvo, piece of shit car, a little boxy sedan. Yeah. We actually bought it in California because it was rust-free. Back then, you had to get a rust-free car. We shipped it to Massachusetts, and he and I built this Volvo race car together. And then he and I would go to the racetrack. So we'd run the Volvo store, and the Volvo store got bigger and bigger and bigger. I think we might have had 15 or 18 people there. It was a pretty decent sized store with sales and the whole thing. But he and I would have this old Volvo. And we had a Dodge Dakota pickup truck with an open trailer. And he and I put this Volvo on the back of this trailer, and we'd go around New England, and I would do one of the races. He'd do a race, and we'd share this car.
And it was like the street, what do you call it? Street tracks or what?
Yeah, road course.
Road course.
Yep. Like Line Rock Park or Watkins Glen.
Not drag.
Nope.
It was a road course.
Left and right turns. Up, down, left and right. Okay. Yeah, road course to call them. Yeah. And those of you that follow NASCAR will see the road course. The NASCAR guys go to Watkins Glen or Sonoma. Yeah. Same type of courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where your racing career started.
Yeah.
You were 18 years old.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We built this car when I was probably 16 or 17, this old Volvo. And he and I would share it. And we had friends at the track, and it was a great thing. He and I would go to the track and spend a weekend together. Father, son, do some racing, hang with other buddies, have dinner. It was a great time for years. And
what happened that it graduated to the next level? Because it's one thing to race a built-at-home Volvo.
Yeah.
to what you ended up doing? How did that progression work?
Well, I mean, so this is 93, and he and I built this Volvo, and we're racing it together. And my dad says, you know what? Like, you're faster than me. You just race it. So long story short, and I had my friend Scott Carlson and a bunch of friends that used to race with us. It was great times, father-son duos, and I just got better and better and better at it, and then I ended up winning, 4 championships or whatever at an amateur level, right? I'm like, Dad, like, I want to do more of this. So we saved up some money. Back then we didn't, we had this Volvo store that we were struggling to get going, and we didn't have any money. And this Volvo probably cost us $10,000 maybe, and we built it ourselves. And then we bought a Camaro to move up a level.
What year?
This is probably a Camaro was like an 82 or 3.
Okay. So
but a friend of mine had started building this Camaro. So like the roll cages in it.
Sure.
We bought it, and this guy from Pennsylvania, Chuck, and then this guy, Bob Griffith, the three of us kind of partnered in this deal, and we finished this Camaro. And then I moved up to like nationals, which is like a semi-pro. And I moved up, and the first year I won like 5 races and won the championship. And this is in 99. I was like, holy shit. Like, this is cool.
Pretty neat.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, Dad, I want to do more of this stuff. So, and we didn't have the money to really do anything else. So I sold the car, that Camaro, and I took the money and I called people and I traveled around and met teams and finally got to, this is a good story. I went in 2000, I got invited to go to Daytona with a team from New York. And I'd never been to Daytona, and I'm still young. Like, what the, wow, Daytona is unbelievable, right? It's like a dream come true to even be there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll be your mechanic. I'll check your tire pressures. Just help me out. And I said, hey, I've been doing some amateur driving, and you think I'd be able to drive the car? Well, Eric, I don't know. You've never been here. I go, like, kind of give me a chance. Long story short, they ended up letting me drive the car at Daytona. It was an unbelievable experience. This is in 2000. And I'm driving around like 180 miles an hour after driving this Volvo that, had 150 horsepower. Now I'm in a 700 horsepower car at Daytona.
Yeah.
And I'm driving around. Man, it was scary and it was fun. And it was, you ever been to Daytona? It's like big banking. I mean, it's unreal. Yeah. Anyway, wild experience. So I go and I'm testing and texting. He's like, wow, you're actually doing okay. We're going to let you do the next test. So long story short, I did test through that weekend. And I ended up being the fastest guy on the team.
Oh, man.
And one of the guys came over, this guy, Evan. He came over to me and he goes, Eric, this is unbelievable. I go, yeah, I'd love to do Daytona, but they don't have enough money for sponsorship. And, and he goes, and he walks over to me and the team owner, and he's got a checkbook in his hand. And he says to the team owner, hey, Tom was his name. Hey, Tom, what's it going to take to sponsor Eric in this race? I forget what the numbers were, 20, 30,000, whatever it was. And the guy pulls out a checkbook, and the guy writes the check and hands it to the guy and says, I want Eric to be in the race. And he put me in the race.
Wow.
In 2000. And I ran Daytona in 2000. We finished 3rd in class back then. Unbelievable.
That is a very, very cool story that you certainly must be very proud of. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
There's a couple of factors, I believe. Now, never done anything like you, but I had a go-kart track on my property in Colorado and go-karts that my dad got.
Yeah.
And I would do figure 8. And I'm talking, I was, what do they call that? When you go around sideways.
Like drifting?
I was drifting in a go-kart back in the 70s. Okay?
You had a track at your house.
I had a track at my house. Yeah, we had 2.5 acres, and I had a go-kart track.
Right.
Now, there's a couple of factors I would assume that really go into making a great race car driver.
Yeah.
One is fearless or bold or pushing boundaries or just saying, fuck it, I'm going to push this car and my brain as far as I can. Mm-hmm. Whatever the consequences are, they are.
Yeah.
And 2, a feeling your vehicle, knowing your vehicle, knowing when you're about to break traction, knowing you're going to tip, know when you can step on the gas.
Absolutely.
What was it about you that made you a phenom and so naturally great at this? Was it one or both?
I mean, it's really all the above. The interesting part of it is that, race car drivers all come from different directions, right? So you got a kid from Brazil that has a dad with a lot of money that can fund him and put him in race cars go-karts at 5 years old.
Right.
Pays for everything, right? That's the absolute opposite of where I started. My dad and I built this shitty old Volvo. And the thing with this old Volvo is that it was so slow. I mean, we made it go pretty fast, but it had like 150 horsepower.
Yeah.
Nothing, 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
But I was determined to figure out how to make this old Volvo go fast. So to make it go fast, you had to, drive it
better.
And number two, you really had to get the suspension working. So I learned all the mechanicals, like how do I do the alignment? How do I do the shocks? How do I tweak it and keep, and my friend Bob Griffith was a huge asset because he was an engineer and helped me a lot back in the day. And he and I had a great relationship. But when I started driving this old Volvo, you had to, number one, you had to obviously be able to really drive it. But number two, you had to basically, figure out a way to make this car go fast. So driving is one aspect, but the machine is as important as the driving, right? So I kept tweaking this machine, and I learned so much about it that I knew what I needed to make this car go fast. So I would get under it myself. My dad and I would tweak it, and then I really learned how to drive it. The moral of that story is that when you learn how to drive something that's really slow and you make it go fast, when you get into fast forward into like professional
you
stuff,
do the same thing.
You do the same thing, but you have an advantage because you're used to not having a lot of power. So you really have the technique down,
right?
Because you're not relying on the power to just, like you driving a car on the street and it's like anybody can, drive a Hellcat and step on the gas to 700 horsepower and go fast straight, but stopping, turning, and all the rest of that is where the art comes in.
Yeah.
So I really learned the mechanical side of it too. So I knew I could tell you, I could drive a car on a track and go, this thing needs more front compression, needs less rebound in the shock, it needs more toe in the rear. I knew it all because I learned, because I had to in order to get to where I was back then.
Yeah.
So then as life goes on, I learned the talent of the driving and
the vehicle,
the ability to tweak the car. So as life went on and I got into driving for professional teams, which we'll talk about in a minute, I could get in the car and drive 5 laps and go, oh, it needs this, this, and this. And the team owner would be like, how do you know? Versus the kid that I'd be competing against for the job would get in the car and go fast, but he had no idea what was wrong with the car.
Right.
And you have to adjust the car to the driving.
Yeah.
So that was one big aspect of, and that's where I learned so much about the mechanicals and how cars work. Right. And like, what do I need to tweak to make it fast for what I like? And, and that combination really just took off later in life. But I mean, there was, especially after this Daytona thing, and then I just kept pounding the phones. It's like starting a business. You're racing, but you're promoting yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're calling and you're showing up at the racetrack and you're talking to every team in the paddock. I mean, no different than you would do for your company. You're trying to create clients in a way.
Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to create opportunities. So back then I'm just talking to anybody and everybody I could.
So it would be like a professional or wanting to be professional musician or band, cutting a CD, going to perform somewhere at a bar, and then handing out free CDs to
100%.
Get the word out so everyone knows who you are.
100%.
So you're promoting yourself. You're marketing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the big thing is, anybody can say they're good at driving race cars. There's a million kids trying to drive race cars. But I mean, you need to be able to get the door open to at least get the opportunity. Right. And then it gets really difficult because, when you get a couple years after this Daytona thing, I got opportunities to drive for, like the factory Nissan team, Peter Cunningham's team. And you would go to a track and you'd be testing against 6 other drivers and you got to get in a car you've never driven before.
Mm-hmm.
And you get, an hour to show your speed and you're driving as hard as you can, but you can't crash because you lose the opportunity. So you're just out there just
trying to make it work
as hard as you
can.
Like
it got to be like racing a horse you've never been on.
Exactly. Same
You've
thing.
got to get to know the horse while you're trying
in
to
a car you've never been in. You might be at a track that you've never even driven.
Yeah.
So there was lots of those getting your feet wet to get an opportunity, but you keep pushing and pushing. And finally, I had a breakthrough. I drove for Nissan, hired me. I got the Nissan job. Nissan, I drove for them for a year, 2003. That was a big deal because it's like a factory program. Like you go to the track and they get tractor trailer and awnings and people and like,
and the money,
real deal.
Money's limitless. It's the best of everything.
But what's crazy is, so I got that deal and did pretty well. I had some podium finishes, but then the deal goes away a year later. They did a 1-year sponsorship, Nissan, and they said, nope, we're not going to do this anymore. So then luckily I did well enough that then, again, Peter Cunningham had a team that I switched over and I drove for Honda for the next 3 years.
Now, Are we winning? You're on the podium.
Yeah.
When was your first big win?
It was a little bit later. I mean, I did really well with the Honda team, and I drove for 2 Honda teams back then. And it was a professional series, but I wouldn't say as high level as where I got to later in life.
Mm-hmm.
But I won a bunch of stuff with Honda. I mean, I won for both teams. I won piles of races. It was great. It wasn't like winning a world championship or IMSA championship like I did later in life, but it was unbelievable. It was a big deal. And then as I got better and better at it and drove for more and more teams, I just kept getting more, it's like you get more opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just more and more comes along. So after the big real breakthrough, I would say, is that after driving for Acura or Honda for years, I met a guy named Teddy Marsh, and I was in Laguna Seca, California,
Mm-hmm.
and I had just won the race. Last race of the year, I just won the race, and I'm flying home, and I'm on a plane with and Teddy, and this guy Teddy Marsh is sitting next to me. Teddy Marsh from Connecticut. I'm flying to Massachusetts, and he says, "Hey, Eric, I work for Sonny Whelan, and Sonny Whelan's starting up his new Corvette team, and you should come do some testing and coach Sonny." And, Sonny's a guy that, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but Sonny owns Whelan Engineering, big emergency lighting company, which you might be familiar with. Anyway, so I flew home. I talked to Teddy. I talked to Sonny. Oh, yeah, come. I ended up, coaching Sonny and testing his cars. Long story short, Honda pulled the plug on the program. And I called Sonny and I said, "Hey, Sonny, this is 2007. And I said, "Hey, Sonny, I just lost my deal. I don't have a ride anymore." And Sonny says, wait a minute, I got a second car here. It doesn't have a motor in it, but I'll call the guys, we'll get a motor, and we'll go to Florida and we'll do the first race together. You run one car, I'll run a car. Okay. Go to Florida. And the guys are building the car at the track. So I show up. I've never been in the car before, right? I've never driven this car at this track or anything. So the guys are putting the engine in. Engine shipped in from who knows where, and these guys are working their ass off on this thing. I get in the car. I do a handful of laps in practice. All of a sudden, the whole front of the car catches on fire.
Oh, man.
The whole thing. So I'm driving down the straightaway, 150 miles an hour. Boom! I got my visor open. This thing explodes. Fire out of the windshield, into my face, into my helmet, burn all my eyebrows, burn my hair.
Holy shit.
Like freaking out, pull over on the side of the track, roll on the ground, fire extinguishers, safety crew, burn this thing. First race I ever did for Sonny Whelan, 2007. So the wild part of the story is that these guys were determined. This team was badass. Teddy and all of his guys. These guys put the car back. They're overnighting, the race is 3 days away because this was testing. They're overnighting parts and shipping stuff, pull the whole car apart, fixing the engine, wire harnesses and body work. And 2 days later, they put this car back together. It's all burnt still. Put it back together. I'm like, shit, am I going to get back in this thing?
Yeah.
Right? And I got in it and I qualified second in the thing.
Jesus.
And the next day we ran the race and I started second, got to the front, led the race, won the race.
Oh my God.
The front of this thing all burned up.
That's
my
great.
face is burnt. The car's burnt. Long story short, I ended up winning this race. So it went from the scariest time in my life, burning this thing down, to in 4 days, winning this big race for Sonny Whelan.
I'll bet he was pretty happy.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unreal. So Sonny says, "Hey, let's do some more of this."
Yeah.
So then we go to Long Beach Grand Prix like a month later, and I don't know, qualified top 5 or something. Long story short, I win the race.
Holy shit,
Same car.
dude.
Win again. So Sonny's like, let's just keep going.
Yeah, why not?
So I ran the rest of the season for Sonny. I won 4 races that year. And that was the beginning of the best relationship, friendship, sponsorship, racing. And that changed my whole life, because long story short, Sonny Whelan sponsored me for 15 more years after that.
Wow.
All the way to the highest ranks of sports car racing. So,
and now he owns what company?
So Whelan Engineering's one of the biggest emergency lighting manufacturers. So police car lights, anything emergency light, airplanes, landing lights.
I think we've got some of his light bars on my patrol vehicles.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, they're based in Connecticut, New Hampshire. Sonny's an amazing guy. Sonny also has Parkinson's, which we'll touch on a little bit later in this. But anyway, so Sonny was unbelievable, and I did anything and everything I could do for Sonny and his company. I would, as life went on and we moved up the ranks, and man, it went for years, right? Yeah. And he built me another car, and we won more races, and then we kept going and going, and we went all the way up to like an IMSA level, which is like the highest level of sports cars, and we ran Daytona prototypes, and I won the championship for him. Dane Cameron and I was my teammate. He and I won the championship in 2016, the whole IMSA championship for the whole series, and then 2 years later, we moved up, Daytona prototype. Cadillac sponsored with Action Express as the team, Sonny Whelan sponsoring it. Felipe Nasser, my teammate, was a Formula One guy, and we won the championship in 2018. Unbelievable.
That is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so you go from a world champion race car driver and decide you want to own a car lot, for lack of a better word, that sells the most exotic and expensive cars on the planet.
Well, Mike, I realized, as I won the championship, the last big championship in 2018, and then 19, we won Petit Le Mans, we won Sebring, and won all this crazy stuff. I was, if you're a race car driver, you're gonna make a bucket list of things that you want to do. Like, I'm checking boxes.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, this stuff is all happening.
Now you're
right?
single throughout this whole time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Chelsea and I have been together 11 years now, so
okay.
the later part of it.
So
yeah,
2013.
Yes.
Is when you, okay.
Yep.
Probably not a terrible life.
Right.
And
No.
You're winning stuff all over. Have you been to, what is it? Monaco?
I haven't been there. Okay. I should go there. In the racing I did, we mostly ran in the US.
Yeah.
I did do some stuff for Callaway in Corvettes in Europe. I did a handful of racing over there.
Yeah.
With Boris Said and I, that was good time.
Boris Said, who owns the BMW dealership here in town.
And Boris is the reason why I ended up here in Murrieta.
Yeah.
He and I were teammates, and he's like, hey, I'm building. He's from Connecticut.
Yeah.
Hey, I moved to California. This is 20 years ago now, 15 years ago. I moved to California. I'm opening a BMW dealership in Murrieta. I'm like, where the hell is Murrieta?
Yeah.
So long story short, I spent more and more time, visiting him, and long story short, Chelsea, my now wife, was working for Boris.
Yeah. Oh, is that right?
And that's, we hit it off.
Oh, that's funny.
And that's, I hit it, obviously we hit it off, and then I fell in love with the area, and
it's
hence leading to
how we know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
in the exotic car world.
Yeah, it is a nice area. Now, so Murrieta, I have to ask, I know that Boris, who owns the BMW dealership, not far from you, is the one that kind of told you about this place.
Yeah.
But Murrieta, California is not a cosmopolitan. I mean, it's not a big city.
Right.
It's got some money,
Yeah.
but nothing like what surrounds us. Within an hour, there's ridiculous money.
Right. Yep.
Which actually makes sense.
Yeah.
What was it that made you decide Murrieta is a good choice to put a car dealership that sells the most expensive cars in the world? I'm Michael Julian, coming to you from the set of my podcast, Down and Dirty with Michael Julian. And I wanted to tell you about our sponsor, which is also one of my companies. It is MPS Security and Protection. We provide personal protection services to high net worth individuals, corporate executives, celebrities, and really anyone at risk in any kind of workplace violence situation. We are headquartered in Southern California, but we provide services throughout the United States through our strategic partners who we have been doing business with for decades. So you're always going to get good service that is gone through our standards to give you the best personal protection service possible. Take a look at us at security-mps.com. That's security-mps.com, and check us out. See you soon.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question, because it was a lot of thought process to make that decision. But what I like about the Murrieta-Temecula area is, coming from Massachusetts, we had a lot of land, right? So, here there's still a decent amount of land you can buy. Like we got 5 acres and Duluth. I mean, there's still land, Massachusetts type feel, right?
Sure.
Right. So it's not quite as populated. people told me I was crazy to start an exotic car store in Murrieta. There's just not, it's not enough money, it's not a population. This is 10 years ago now. Why don't you do it in San Diego and Orange County, whatever? I said, I don't like the traffic. I don't want to deal with all that. I don't want to sit in bumper to bumper.
Yep.
I can be out here in Murrieta. I can be close enough. I can drive an hour to wherever I need to be. I've still got some land. I still can drive my car. The big thing was driving a car.
Yeah.
Like if you buy a Ferrari and you're in Orange County, where do you drive it? You drive it to the beach and drive it over to dinner?
Over Ortega here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you do.
Exactly. But out here, we do car drives. West Coast Exotic Cars will do it, Cars and Coffee. We'll do car drives all through the mountains here. Yeah. So that the driving part of it is cool. So, and then on top of it, obviously, to build a 75,000 square foot, 3.5 acre facility in Orange County would cost me 10 times the amount of money it costs here. Yeah. So my setup, and obviously, Chelsea was here and she loves the area. The kids are here and her family's here.
But you didn't meet her here.
I met her because she was working for Boris. So yes, she was here. Yeah,
right.
She was here.
That's right.
Right. So, 10 years ago, I just rented a house and I was still living in Sarasota, Florida, racing cars when we met.
Yeah.
So I would basically kind of like, I'll feel it out for a year and rent a house and I just fell in love with the area. Right. Florida's great, but the humidity's killer.
Yeah.
Right. So
I was just there last week. You're right.
It's brutal. Brutal. I mean, I was in the water in Sarasota, had a great house there and all that, but I mean, you come out here, it's dry and, yes, it's hot, but, as time's gone on, I've just, I've fell in love with the area, right? I mean, in West Coast, West Coast Exotic Cars, at the end of the day, you could almost be anywhere with the way that the internet websites and all this stuff work, videos and all that. I mean, probably 40% of what we sell, the client never comes in the door. We're videoing, putting a car in a lift,
sure,
showing them the whole thing and shipping it to their doorstep.
Really?
So we could be, a client on the East Coast doesn't know whether we're in Murrieta or LA. Neither do they care, right? So from that perspective, almost half of our business, you can be anywhere because the people are walking in the door regardless. But again, Murrieta, as you know, Mike, in the last 10 years has grown significantly.
Huge.
Right? So now, as it grows and as I've really gotten to know the area, there's a lot of money here.
There is.
I mean, we've got clients in La Cresta and Duluth and wine country. Look at wine country.
Sure.
It's unbelievable.
Tons of money.
Right?
And you're an hour from San Diego.
Yeah.
An hour from Newport Beach.
Yeah.
An hour and 15 from Los Angeles.
Right.
An hour and 10 from Palm Springs.
Right.
I mean,
you're
in the central, located in the heart of, there's so much money within 50 miles of here in any direction.
Yep. So back to your question, I mean, why Murrieta? Again, I love that it's gotten a lot busier than it was 10 years ago, but you can still, like, when I leave West Coast and I drive to Duluth, this is zero traffic. I just take the back road and I'm up the hill.
Yeah.
And I'm in my own little world. I got my 5 acres and it's like, I'm away from everything. And 10 minutes, I drive down the hill and I'm right back in the middle of it again. But there's still that, kind of freedom to drive and enjoy your cars. You still get your acreage, and it's expensive, but it's not unreachable.
Sure.
And then of course the friends and the acquaintances and the clients that, like yourself, that you meet all these people over the years. And I fell in love with the area. I love the people. I love I like the people that hustle in business. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that push hard around here.
Yeah.
My little circle of people, man, we're going and everybody's successful and healthy and it's amazing. So I fell in love with the area. And then, we go to Havasu, we got a house out there. I mean,
that's actually a good lead into how we met.
Yeah.
We ended up in, was it still Vistage when you joined?
No.
Okay.
No, it already switched
So we were
over.
Vistage.
Yep.
CEO group.
Yep.
And then we decided to leave. Our chairman decided to go do something else. Mm-hmm. And we had our member, John, that we said, this is who we want to be our chairman. And they said, no, we'll give you the chairman we want you to have.
Right.
And it was some 90-year-old guy that had, his whole job was just running Vistage groups.
Right.
And that was not working for us. So we left. And then I can't remember who brought you on board.
I think Matt did.
Matt Clark.
Did. Yep, Matt Clark.
Okay.
Yep, Matt Clark.
So,
but you and I had already kind of known each other, and he's telling me about the people in the group, and this is cool as hell.
Yeah. And has it not been a great experience?
It's been great. Absolutely.
I mean, for instance, the extreme sudden change that happened 2 months ago
Yeah.
You brought it to the group, and
Absolutely.
we processed it as an issue.
Yeah.
And didn't it make you feel a whole lot more
For
comfortable
sure.
with whatever happened? Because
Absolutely.
we've all dealt with certain situations like this, and we all made it through, and we're all just fine. But I have brought a couple of different things to the group that I was literally pulling my hair out because I had no idea how to deal with it. And by the time I left, after an hour's worth of processing, I had brilliant perspectives from multiple different brilliant CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, we're going to be fine because these guys gave me great advice. So I've got a game plan for whichever way I decide
confidence in whatever you're going to do, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because, this sometimes, we meet once a month, and, this sometimes I'm like, man, I got so much going on and I can't just take the day to do it. We've all been there.
Yep.
But then I'm like, you know what? The hell with it. I'm going to go, and I go, and it's like, like you kind of restart. You leave there, you get all these notes, like, man, it's like you're recharged.
Yeah.
It's great. John does a great job. And, obviously the people in the group are phenomenal.
Phenomenal
Such a
people.
good mixture. And it's fun how nobody has the same businesses and all the different perspectives, especially now, because, economy, political stuff, whatever's going on. It's really interesting to me to get everybody's view on, like, Mike, what's your business doing right now?
Yeah.
Bryce, what's the restaurant business doing? You get, different.
And it helps with perspective. Because if you're out there alone and you don't know that other people are feeling the same way you're feeling, it's scary.
Right.
But then if the next three guys who are intelligent and you respect, and they're going to be fine, they say, well, this is what's going on with us, and we're going to have the same challenges, but this is my perspective and how I want to deal with it. And you're like, oh shit, I guess this is not the sky is falling situation.
Right.
And now I've got a support group that know the same stuff.
Yeah, that's great. You can push on those guys and ask questions.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, seriously, great.
Yeah.
So your dealership, you have, like, if I'm bored or sad or for any reason I can think of, I decide I want to go walk through your showroom.
Right.
There is a line of McLarens.
Yeah.
There's a line of Porsches. Yeah. There's a line of Ferraris. Yeah. There's a line of Lamborghinis. I mean, I can't even imagine how many millions of dollars of inventory you have there, but
there's a few.
It is exciting. And I wish to God I had a place like this when I was a little boy that my dad could have walked me through, because that would have just been the most exciting thing. It is just nothing but hundreds and millions of dollars worth of the most exciting, sexiest, high performance sports cars on the planet.
Right. Yeah. There's no question. I mean, it's an interesting blend of the things that have happened over my life to get me to where I am today with West Coast Exotic Cars. I mean, if you think back on the Volvo dealership, I learned about business and the car business 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it be Volvos or Ferraris.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same kind of concept. It's just the dollar amounts are different. Right. Same concept. So I learned over the years a lot about business. And then as I get into racing cars, you meet all these, whether they be sponsors or friends. The racing community has some very wealthy individuals. They're all car guys.
Yeah.
So you take the experience from the Volvo store, and then you mix it in with meeting all these high level clients that become your friends that are into cars. So they become, people that you can, buy and sell cars with West Coast, and it just, all these things that have happened in my life. And then I say this to my staff often, where, racing cars and being successful is a serious amount of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Serious.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not only your fitness and your health, and just simulators and studying and all this, eye-hand coordination, all these things that you do to be good at racing a car is really, you're fine-tuning the car and you're fine-tuning yourself constantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way that you can win races or championships or whatever. Business is really the same thing, right? And West Coast Exotic Cars, my approach to it's been the same. Like, how do I continue to better this company and make it better and tweak it and adjust it? And of course I'm biased, but I believe that we probably sell some of the highest quality cars, mostly used car inventory of any dealership in the country, because I'm a pain in the ass. Like, I want the tires to be right. And, what dealership, we put them on lift, we pull the wheels off, we clean the inside of the wheels, we clean the brake calipers, we go through, we're out of control. And it's the same, that mentality is the same mentality I had in racing, where you've got to be on your game with every aspect of this and never give up. And if you apply that same prospect to business, whatever business it is, exotic cars are your
same
business.
Same standard.
It's a standard. High standard, never give up. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a million races where, shit happens in racing cars. I mean, you have a bad pit stop, you run out of gas, you smash your brains out into the wall.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things that can happen to allow you to not win a race or not, win a championship.
Sure.
It's the same in business. You're just basically trying to, protect yourself and put yourself in a scenario to avoid the potential that's probably going to happen.
And beat all the other competitors, which is the same in business.
Right. Yep. The same concept.
Yeah.
Right. You just try to have that discipline. And, it's tricky because I just as I did in racing, I pushed extremely hard in every aspect of racing, and business on the same way. Right. And it's led to creating this West Coast Exotic Cars, which is, this pretty well-known brand, I would say, throughout the country.
Yeah.
Right. I got to be cautious with my employees because I tend to push really hard, and
because you expect the same amount of effort from them as you do from yourself.
Right.
And not everybody's going to do that.
Right.
Otherwise, they'd be the owner.
Right.
And that's a difficult thing to get used to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And obviously you being successful, any one of our friends in our CEO group, for example, experiences that same thing. And I push hard, but my threshold level is extremely high.
Sure.
And I've smashed cars in the wall at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've done some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So living that life, gets you to a point where your threshold in whatever you do, like, this is a challenge in business where an employee might go, man, this is so hard. How are we going to get through it?
Sure.
We're just going to push right through this thing.
Your pain threshold, whether the form of pain, whether it's financial, business, emotional, whatever, is very high because you've lived through all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. If you've caught on fire at 150 miles an hour and almost burned yourself to the ground, your threshold becomes pretty high.
Sure.
Right. If you've smashed into a tree acting like an idiot in the woods, your threshold becomes pretty high, right? You back a car, and I did some NASCAR racing throughout my racing career, and man, I got hit in the back once and spun the thing around and backed the car into the wall at 150 miles an hour. You ring your bell, right? I mean, it's like, shit. Yeah. But you learn from all those things too. But the only
hopefully not everyone does.
It's true.
That's the theme. And part of this thing that's important in my show is you can choose to learn from it.
Yeah.
And then it's a lesson, or you can choose not to, and then it's a mistake.
Right.
And if you choose to, whatever the experience is, whether it's the car, the fire, the divorce, the whatever, if you process it and you figure out, how do I avoid doing this again? Right. Or how will I be prepared when it does? That's what makes us better. And that's the theme here. And that's why people like you are successful.
Right. And I think, whatever it is you're doing, especially business related or whatever, or if you're an athlete or whatever you are, you're constantly building a memory bank of your history, right? When you're racing cars, you're like, you pushed too hard and you hit the wall. Like, okay,
right.
Now I got to learn.
Right.
I got to back up
just a hair
bit, just enough to be competitive, but not hurt myself or hurt others. Right. Yeah. And you're building this whole memory bank. And that's why, like, when people see me, even today, when I jump in a race car, somebody just said to me a week ago, I went to Atlanta and did some driving, and like I got in the car and I haven't really driven competitively in the last 3 or 4 years like I used to, but I get in the car and it's like you do 5 laps and I'm almost up to speed already.
Sure.
Right. And people are like, Eric, how does that happen? It happens because I drove race cars for 30 years.
Yep.
I have this massive memory bank. I know what that thing's going to do immediately.
Yep.
And you flip a switch, and that same thing, I think, relates to business because, as you see business owners starting out and the risk level, threshold level is pretty low, right? It's like, man, I'm going to borrow some money, or I got some, I got to buy some equipment for my business. And
scary.
I'm on the edge financially. And, and as and it's funny because I think about selling Volvos for $20,000 30 years ago. And now we're selling $1 million cars, right? It's just, your threshold just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just like that in business. You just have to be cautious about, your mistakes and make sure that you avoid them, but you're going to make mistakes.
Of course.
It's just a question of how many and at what time.
And make it a good thing.
Yeah.
Turn a mistake into a good thing.
Right.
If it's a learning experience and you're better off for it, then hallelujah. Thank goodness for that mistake.
Right. And a lot of it's mental too, don't you think, Mike?
Oh yeah.
Like, the stuff that you were scared of 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you're like,
nothing.
What the hell was I scared of?
Sure.
Right. And today you're like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the bank account's low. Okay, we need to figure out how to fix it.
Right. And then
right?
You do.
Yeah. You do.
I love that. Hi, everybody. As you know, I'm Michael Julian, and I'm the creator and founder of the Alive Active Shooter Survival Training Method and Program. And Alive is today's sponsor for my podcast. So you know, Alive is an acronym. It stands for Assess, Lead, Impede Violence, and Expose. It is Run, Hide, Fight 2.0, the new and improved method. We have certified over 290 instructors in 6 countries, and we're certifying new ones every month. If you are interested in becoming a certified instructor of the Alive Active Shooter Survival Training Method, please reach out. We'll give you all the information you need, and we have a class at the end of every month. We would love to have you in our 2-day course and then have you out there teaching the world the best way to survive an active shooter. And as a sponsor of the show today, if you call and would like to either get the active shooter training or you want to become an instructor, mention my podcast, Down and Dirty with Michael Julian, and we'll give you a 10% discount on either way you want it. Thanks for staying tuned, and we'll see you soon. Let me ask you a few questions to just kind of get inside your head a little bit. What are you not very good at?
But I'm not very good at singing. That I'm terrible.
Okay, good to know.
I'd love to. Yeah, don't ask me to
sing.
Keep
that in mind.
Or
when we
ask Chelsea. She's like, no. I mean, Mike, I try to stay in my own lane in terms of what I'm good at is I'm good at cars on all aspects. I think from driving to selling to buying to whatever.
As a businessman, what are you weak at? Because you got to know your weaknesses.
Yeah, for sure.
You find somebody with those strengths to accommodate or to balance you out a little bit.
I think the management part of it is the most difficult, I think, in business, especially as you grow to 20-something employees, is you've got to really understand, the world has changed versus running a business 20 years ago to how things operate today, and the mentality and the generations, and we've got some younger generations, especially in the like the detail department, or versus the guys that work for me that are 50 years old like I am, have a similar mentality. So you're constantly trying to adjust and be cautious of the employees and managing these employees, right? And because I push at 110% all the time doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the same push or the same mentality or the same. I mentioned threshold before, but the threshold is one thing that I think about more often than I used to, because the average person doesn't have a threshold that's anywhere near what mine is, right? And I push. And the average, whether it be employee or customer,
you're going to push them further than what they're used to because they don't have your experience.
Right.
So is your weakness then not knowing when enough is enough and backing off? Because I'm in the exact same boat. I have very high standards. I expect a lot of myself. And I've been through a lot. So a lot of things don't hurt that may hurt some.
Right.
Also, I'm not good at being kind and gentle and sweet and sassy when it comes to telling you what to do. If I pay your paycheck, all I need to do is say, I want this done, and I expect it to get done.
Right.
That doesn't work with everybody, does it?
No, it doesn't. And that part's tough. And I think, again, as the world has evolved, I think that's changed quite a bit in terms of the managing your company or managing people.
Yeah.
Right. Is you and I think alike on and that's why we're entrepreneurs, and that's why we're business owners, because we're willing to push and we're willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
There is, the threshold's higher. And, and you've got to be cautious to not put your employee in a position where, because I look at that, no big deal. They might say, whoa, I've never done that. Or, or that's outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
I mean, you look at the people that are successful, like the big business owners. I mean, these guys push. I mean, it's black and white.
Yeah.
Boom. This is what I'm doing. You don't like it? See you later.
And they've been knocked around and pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Right.
Which I always go into this, and I probably should at least skip one episode every once in a while. It reflects on this new generation that hasn't had it tough,
right?
Who got a participation medal, who got their, you know, their head rubbed and their hindies rubbed and said, "Oh, everything's going to be just fine.
Yeah.
The world will take care of you," and then they find out that it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Do you see anyone like that reaching the heights that you have when they're not used to it being a little tough,
right,
and just moving forward with their head down anyway?
It's a completely different mentality and approach these days,
It is.
you know, with this, you know, younger generation versus when you and I grew up.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I, like you know, you played in the dirt, you ate dirt, you did
Yeah.
whatever you
Yeah.
did, right?
Yeah.
And you took care of yourself.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you didn't have the babysitting along. I mean, I want to be successful, and I was determined. And you know, my parents taught me, like, hey, you're going to go do something, like, go do it.
Right.
Right. I wanted to move out at 18.
Yeah.
I wanted to start my life. The new generation, you know, they're just, they don't have, you know, I think the percentage of people your and I age was pretty high that was going to have some success rate, whatever it is they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The percentage today is very small. I don't see many people that, or many of this young generation that has the drive and ambition and the determination to get through to what it takes to be successful.
No.
What happened?
Yeah.
You know, we're old school, I guess.
Yeah.
But the old school, you know, you cut your finger, no big deal. You keep working.
Yeah. You
Right?
put some duct tape on it, and you keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part's tough. And it's hard, you know, when we're talking about owning your own business, and those of you that have businesses out there that, you know, have employees, see it for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
God.
And it's tough.
It is tough. In the movie of Eric Kern's life, who would play Eric Kern?
That's a good question. That's a good question, Mike. Who could we have play that part?
I'm thinking
Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
Right? Sure. Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
So
that
many,
would be exciting.
so
right?
many good actors
Yeah,
that
right.
would probably love to play your
Yeah,
life.
for sure.
I think that
it's been Mike, at the end of the day, it's been a great life. There's been lots and lots of challenges, but you know, you just keep pushing through them. The only way you're going to be successful is if you just have that drive.
Put your head
not
down.
giving up.
Put your head down.
Whether they're going to win a world
Yep.
championship in racing, or
Yep.
you know, whether this business
Yeah.
succeeds or whatever it is you want to do, you know,
You got to have a can-do attitude, and can't has got to be not in your
right?
vocabulary unless it's.
But I feel like this, you know, we keep going back to the same thing. Younger generation, the can't is, you know,
can is.
and with our kids, with Devin and Haley, I push the kids pretty hard.
Yeah.
But you can see it working,
Sure.
right? There's determination, there's discipline, there's, you know, and it's relating to success.
Yeah.
And, you know, but it's tricky because it's, you know, the parents aren't as hard on their kids as they were
Oh no.
back in the day.
No. And I wasn't as hard on my kids as my parents were on me by far, and by design, because they were harder than they needed to be.
Right.
But I'm so proud of my kids because they came up with an incredible work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll work as much as they have to get the job done.
Yeah.
And they're going to, like Dana White says, they're going to steamroll over everybody else their age, because they're all in the
Right.
I don't have to, you can't make me, my feelings are hurt generation, surrounded by those people.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't mind putting their head down and doing the work are just going to fly right to the top.
You think, yeah, if you even did 50% of what we did back in the day, you're already separating yourself from this generation.
Yep.
Right? Because there's just, again, back to percentage, there's a small percentage of kids, younger generation today, that are pushing and have the mind
They
thought
exist.
that we do.
Yep.
You know, but it's just like, I feel like there was a bigger population, bigger percentage back then.
Well,
now it's
Gen X was who raised us.
right.
And those were the people that thought that working a 10-hour workday made them a better human being than working an 8-hour workday, because they were taught you work your ass off.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's probably not a bad idea that our generation probably came back just a little bit, because, you know, think of my dad died at 57 years old because he worked his ass off.
Right.
True. You know, that's not a good thing either.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Have you had your I made it moment yet?
Yeah, for sure.
What was that?
I mean, I have flashbacks of, we touched on earlier today, of coming to California with my dad and being a little boy and going around, you know, Hollywood or Beverly Hills and taking pictures of Porsches and taking pictures of all this stuff, right? And to fast forward to today and to pinch myself and say, hey, I won 2 IMSA championships, and now, which is silly, but you almost get a little immune to when I walk in the dealership and there's 100 cars in there and tens of millions of dollars. Like, you got to pinch yourself. But there's been a time recently, especially the new building a couple of years ago, you walk in and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like I did this.
Yeah.
Like all that hard work and sleepless nights and, up at 2 a.m. and all this stuff is what got it here. And, and I've got a brand new Ferrari SF90, which, like you would never think 20 years ago, driving around an old Volvo, that I would have, something like that today. And we, Chelsea and I have a great life, right? I mean, we got a beautiful house in Duluth. We got this great business. I survived my racing career in one piece.
Yeah.
We've got a house and a boat in Havasu. I mean, the only thing I that I would, fix if I could is my dad's health. Parkinson's at 80 years old is the toughest thing, being 3,000 miles away. But yeah, we're in a pretty good place. So it's pretty surreal, but hard work.
Do you allow yourself to, when you feel that, when you look around and go, holy shit, I did this, and you've got to have some kind of sense of elation or dopamine dump or serotonin or something like that. Do you allow yourself to feel that way and enjoy it? Or are you cognizant enough when you're struggling or stressed to go, wait a minute, remember yesterday when I looked around and went, holy shit, I did all of this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a stud.
Yeah.
Do you allow yourself to help mitigate the harder times by pivoting your thought process over to that? Or do you sink into, the reason I'm asking is because I know how I'm affected by it.
Right.
Or do you sink into being immersed in that shit? We haven't sold enough cars this month. I just had a massive change in personnel that was not good. How do you process those difficult, stressful, anxiety, depression, whatever moments that are kind of got you going, I don't know how much more of this shit I can take.
Right.
How do you process those?
Yeah, especially the last 90 days, you feel a little like, man, I worked so hard to get here, and now this is stressful financially and all that stuff. It's like, man,
now, the fear of losing it, does that come into play?
I mean, I would say that one thing I'm guilty of is I keep setting new goals constantly in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm racing cars at, I'm amateur and now professional, and now I want to win a championship, and you just keep pushing. And in business, like, okay, I got this, like getting that building and doing that whole undertaking of the building was a massive challenge. Massive. Like, okay, I got that done. Okay. And I tend to, just guilt of my own, I tend to say, okay, that's done. Okay, let me build a whole new list of things I need to check off, right? Rather than, I probably need to pay more attention to the reality, like what you're referring to. This is what I built.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get so caught up in, like, oh, I want to do more. I can do anything. I mean, because I've definitely gotten head over heels in terms of like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Right. You do have to kind of reel yourself back in. And a little bit of a mind thought lately is backing up a couple steps and saying, you know what, rather than just living with this big amount of risk, meaning just constantly needing to grow, let me back it up a little bit and get things a little more systematic and get a little bit more smooth process and keep a little more money in reserve and have it, and just more, really, I'm going to be 50 years old this year, enjoy what I built.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and try to get it more streamlined and not try to kill myself to move it to the next level every day.
It's hard when you're driven, isn't it?
It is.
It's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
To put the brakes on when you're driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what drives you as far as why you're driven. I know what drives me, and I don't know that comes from a super healthy place based on the way I was brought up.
Right.
But it is really hard to go, wow, this is pretty amazing. I did great. Maybe I'll just kind of put it in neutral and coast for a bit.
Right.
Or maybe I'll just spoil myself and take my wife to wherever and just enjoy what I built.
Yeah.
Is that difficult for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And the saddest part of that is I know people in business that have worked 110% and they get to be like 70 years old and they have all this money, but their body's burnt out. They're tired. And now you can't enjoy it. I always said years ago that when I get to be 50 years old, I want to take a deep breath, right? And start to enjoy the time and have a business that runs. And I've definitely, especially in the last number of months, really steered and focused more on getting my place more operational,
Mhm.
where I don't have to live it and babysit it every day of the month.
That's what
Right.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
That's a
and
healthy
it's
business.
really hard to get there because, again, you've got to really have a great staff, which I have an amazing group of people
You do.
that work for
You
me,
do.
right? I mean,
Great
I got
people.
some of the most talented people, and some of these, Annette and Blake and these guys have been with me for years outside of Hunter.
Yeah.
Are just they kick ass. They do a great job. So enabling them and putting them in a position to do what they do best, and really coaching them and teaching them that hey, if I'm away for a week, you guys got this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's healthy. That's healthy delegation and healthy
Right.
management when you
Yeah.
can do that. And you have to have that
Right.
in order for guys like
Yeah.
us to
Yeah.
actually stop
Yeah.
thinking, maybe forget your phone. I've been actually forgetting where my phone was lately,
Right,
which is
right.
a really good sign. It means
Yeah.
I'm starting to back off a little bit
Yep.
and let up a little bit of control. But I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing president. I have a great staff.
Yeah. Good.
You're getting to that point, and maybe,
Right.
hopefully, Jordan
Yeah.
will be your integrator, and
Right.
he's the guy that you
Yeah.
can say, take care of it, make good
Yep.
decisions.
And he's
If you don't
done
know
a
what to
phenomenal
do,
job.
think, what would Eric do, and then
Right.
do that, and then
Yep.
you're gone for a week or
Yeah,
two.
exactly. Yeah, and it's it's interesting with the change in personnel last couple of months too, is that my guys, which you've worked with, Blake, Aaron, Montana, Jordan now, and the girls and all the guys in the back, Alex and Kenny, and I've got a great group of people that
Yeah.
are really talented and really can do a good job.
Do you ever think, geez, I'm surrounded by amazing people. Now, I don't think you grew up in a much healthier environment, I think, than I did. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of self-doubt, and I'm like, am I working hard enough? Am I
Yeah.
doing enough? If this is this.
Right.
And then, and am I a nice enough person?
Yeah.
You probably don't get that much. I think that every once in a while
Come on, Mike.
when people are like, you're an asshole. I think,
Right.
well, you might have something there.
Right.
Do
You
ever
can be an
think-
asshole, but
you-
that's a difference.
Yes. You ever look around and go, my God, I am surrounded by amazing
Good
people
Yeah.
that will literally bend over backwards
Yeah.
to do what we've
Yep.
agreed needs to be done.
Right.
Is that ever a gauge on whether you
Yeah.
made it or not?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And there's no better feeling. And I just had it just last week. There's no better feeling than walking into your store. Let's say the store, I got guys there at 8:00 or earlier, or, even Lee in the back, 7:30, so I got guys there early. And if I go to the gym and I got stuff going on, and I show up at, let's say 9:30, and the place is just all working. Everybody's doing their
they're
thing. And there's
buzzing.
cars selling and buzzing and
Yes.
clients.
Isn't
and
that
like,
great?
holy shit, this is why I work this hard.
Yes.
And it's so fun when cars are selling and everybody's flowing and
Yeah.
they're all guys
feels-
are making money and
Yeah.
things are good.
It feels good.
right. Yeah.
I walked in my office the other day, and there was 4 people from 4 different departments converged, my employees,
Yeah.
in the lobby. I think 1 or 2 of them are still standing on the stairs. There's one at the reception. There's one in the lobby.
Yeah.
And they're processing an issue that one of them had come up in their department.
Right.
And they're processing it from 4 different perspectives. And they completely ignored me. I walked in the door thinking, hey,
That's
guy that signed
success,
your-
Mike.
the guy that signs your checks is here. And they didn't even stop, break stride to look at me.
Right.
And I stood there for probably 15 seconds listening to them. And I thought, oh God, that feels good.
Right.
That feels good.
That's good.
You got good, solid people underneath you
Yep.
that have your best interests at heart, that
Yeah.
know their job, and they're working to process a problem that's not even in their own department.
Right.
That
There's-
was
there's
very-
really nothing better than all the things that they're solving without you even being involved. That's success.
And
I
when-
think that's
when
success.
you're a control freak, that's about the greatest gift your employees can give you
right.
is fixing something without you
Yeah.
telling them to fix it or
Right.
knowing that it's broken.
Yeah.
And then you find out later,
Yeah.
whoo,
Yeah.
man, that feels good,
Yep,
doesn't it?
Yep. Yep. I mean, it's hard. As you know, Mike, I mean, you want to micromanage everything.
Yeah.
That's the problem,
Yes.
right? You want to be involved in everything,
Everything.
right? And we don't need to be involved
Nope.
in everything.
Nope.
And I keep telling myself, because, we've got internal chats and we got teams, all this stuff going on. And I find myself wanting to respond to everything.
Yes.
And I go, no, Eric, just let it ride, let it flow. These guys will figure it out.
Yep.
Right? Don't poke at every little thing, right?
No. It's
But it's
hard
just-
though, isn't it?
It's hard. It's hard when you built this. This is your baby.
Yes.
You built it yourself.
Yeah.
Every aspect of it.
Yep.
Right. So, it's hard because you want to be involved in every little thing, but you've got to learn like, hey, this is why you've hired good people. This is why you have a great staff.
Yeah.
This is why, you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But,
it feels good. Well, that's kind of an I made it. At least I've made it as a boss or as a businessman.
Yeah.
When you've got a culture like that doesn't even need you there.
Right.
And really, if you read Jim Collins' Good to Great, Built to Last, any of that stuff, and he says if you build a business on one person, that person leaves and the business fails, you've failed.
Right.
If you build it and can step out and the business goes on and maybe even gets better, that's when you know you're a good businessman.
Right. It's true. It's
100%.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're going through now. I mean, we've had some big changes, but I mean, here we are, we're shifting and, we've got, Michaela's in accounting and now she's in marketing, and we've hired Jennifer in accounting to work with Annette. And we're shifting things around. Mostly, Jordan's doing the heavy lifting, but I mean, it all feels good.
Yeah.
This is all, and nobody likes change, right?
No.
And the employee's like, well, we're moving offices and we're adding people. Like, what's going on?
Please buy a handful of copies of Who Moved My Cheese and make it mandatory reading for every one of your,
we'll do.
At least your key employees.
Right.
I'm telling you, it changed my life and the way I look at change.
Yeah.
It really has. And I now can, because I used to nut up. I would freak out. Wait a minute, a change?
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for this. Nobody told me this was coming.
Yeah.
And I'd lose my shit.
Right.
And now I think, ooh, this could be a great opportunity. And when you have that attitude, a lot of the time it will become an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, one thing you can guarantee is there's going to be change.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just fact.
Accept it and figure out how to move forward through it and whatever.
Yep.
There will be change.
If you were going to give advice to anybody, either a young person or maybe somebody that's looking to make a change in careers, or what solid advice would you, from your business, from your racing, from your family, from your bachelor times, what advice, what kind of one or two lessons would you want to you think would be a good one to throw out there and say, hey, do this?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to basics, because I've had for years people say, Eric, how did you become a professional race car driver and be so successful? How did you build West Coast and be so successful? There's really no real magic to it. I still go back to the basics, because I don't feel like I'm not some big college grad with degrees. I don't have any of that.
Yep.
Right. What I have is I have ethics, and I have discipline. And I am willing to push through anything. And, don't, as tempting as sitting on your phone and watching TikTok is, even for me.
Sure.
Right. You're not going to be successful by doing that. Right. You can't you need to go out there in the real world and just work at things, set goals. Right.
Oh,
there's so much downtime. This new generation, there's so much wasted time in the day. Right? You just constantly continue to think, hey, what could I be doing different, better, what have you? It's like I walk to the dealership and there's a piece of paper on the floor. I'll pick that thing up. Right? And my employees,
walked over it. Yeah.
Right? But I've trained myself to just take advantage of especially while you're working or while you're on the clock, of constantly time management discipline, setting goals. And just even if you set one goal a week and you do one thing that's even a simple thing, or ideally you set, I set reminders on my phone every day of the week. I build a whole calendar every single day of the week.
Yep.
This has probably been one of the most successful things I've taught myself. Every day of the week, I build a list of things I want to do in a day. And to be honest, if I do 20% of them, that's a win.
Yeah.
20% of those things. And then I move them to the next day or move them to the next week.
Yeah.
But that's 20% more than most anybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And people, you get caught up in your everyday life and I don't make enough money and life is too difficult. Set basic goals. Just set basic goals on what you want to do. And there's so many people just making silly mistakes and not putting any effort into anything. It's really not, at the end of the day, you want to have whatever level of success you want to have, effort, discipline, and drive.
Yep.
And just organize your life a little bit.
Yep.
It's really, I think in a weird way, it's easier to be successful today than it was 30 years ago.
Sure.
Because there's fewer people that are successful, or fewer, especially in a younger generation. There's fewer people that are going to become successful.
And we
in
have
my
more,
opinion.
and we have more tools to become successful now than
right.
we ever did before.
You can learn anything.
We've got all of the knowledge
Yeah.
in existence in our phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of that
no,
stuff back
no.
in the day.
We didn't have GPS.
You just worked your ass off.
Yeah.
I mean, more or less.
Yeah. Well, you said a lot, so I want to pick out a couple of points that I think were great. Setting goals, you have to have something to accomplish, and then have desire to accomplish it, and then make the decision to not fail in accomplishing it.
Right.
And those three things, pretty much is the formula to bake the perfect cake, success cake.
Absolutely.
You know,
even if failure's okay. If you set 10 goals and you fail at 7 of them, but you were successful in 3,
absolutely,
that's success.
Yep. I used to be absolutely failure phobic because I get in so much trouble if I didn't finish something or I didn't do it right when I was a kid. So it kind of triggered me a little bit, right? Yeah. So I would literally not try things because I was afraid of failing.
Yeah.
And I recognized that was a weakness of mine. And I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep. Yeah, sure.
And he talked about the fact that failure and success, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
Every time, and he had a great story, every time you fail, you're one step closer to success.
Yep.
Because just like Thomas Edison with 1,000 times with the light bulb, every time you fail, you're one step closer to success.
Yeah.
And I started to change the way I looked at failure, and I thought, okay, well, I just failed at that.
Yeah.
I mean, there were smart things. They weren't stupid things where I'm going to get myself killed.
Yeah.
I failed at that. So the next one, I'm even closer to success, and it made it less daunting and less scary.
For sure.
So now, trying shit like starting a podcast, and just having people on, and it's been a most wonderful experience.
Right.
When failure, and even if I do decide one day to stop doing it, I still got to do it, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, it's back to the threshold thing too, Mike. You kind of, your fear level just goes away.
It does.
Like,
it starts to dissolve.
Yeah. I can do it. I can.
Absolutely.
No problem. And this isn't that difficult to do, Mike. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff isn't really that difficult.
No.
It's just that people are fearful and don't have the motivation to do it.
Yep.
It's not really that difficult. And I view my life kind of like a scale, right? You've got this whole scale of things, or anybody's life for that matter. You've got this whole scale, like this is your whole 100%. And over the years, as you try things and you try and fail, you do that for years, right? And then you end up being on this side of the scale where you operate in the 20% of the 100% scale.
Right.
But you've done all these things. You've said, this was wrong, this was right, this was wrong, through your whole life.
Right.
And then that you build this whole memory bank. That's how you're successful in racing or business or whatever, because you've tried all these things. You know that if you pushed another 2 miles an hour, you're going to hit the wall.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to back that up.
Right.
Memory bank. And you build this whole memory, and you operate in a window where you're in 20% of your 100%.
Yes.
On the right side of the scale.
Yep.
If you never try any of those things, then you just got this big scale of nothing.
Yep.
Right.
You know, that what you just said reminds me of an analogy that I want to talk. It's kind of like relationships. When you're young, starting out, you meet a girl or guy or whatever, and you start dating them, and then that relationship ends, and you think of, why did it end? Because these things that happened were worse than the good things. So I know I don't want those characteristics in my next person. Yeah. And then the next one you get that doesn't have those characteristics, but then you find out, well, I don't like those characteristics, but I really like those characteristics, but that relationship doesn't work out. Yeah. So now you've eliminated all of those negative characteristics and identified all of those positive. So you keep getting better, hopefully. Better and better, and getting more involved with people that fit that mold or what makes you work or that energy or whatever.
Yep, absolutely.
So in life, you have an experience. Yeah. You go, I don't like that. Don't do that again. I like that, and you're going in that direction. Mm-hmm. So you make fewer and fewer mistakes because you don't put yourself in that position.
Of course.
Yeah.
Building that memory.
Yeah. That analogy made perfect sense to me.
Building all that. Yeah. Relationships, the same thing. Yeah. You build all that history, or whether you're hiring employees or whatever it is. Yeah. Oh, I've done that. I don't want to do that again.
Is an employee. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Because leave the romance out of it. Yeah. You see that person, they have shoddy shoes. Yep. And their hair's messed up, that's probably not going to be the one you're going to put in the reception desk. Right. You want the big smile and the happy look at.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, if we're, talking about business, is you're trying to learn as much as you can learn in the shortest period of time in your life. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of people that get to be 70 years old and they're brilliant.
Yep.
Because they got all this history.
Yes.
Right. But you try to be, Jeff Bezos, where you got really smart and really good early in life, and then you lead this unbelievable future, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the goal for sure.
Yeah.
And it's tough to do all that, right? It's tough to learn all that.
Especially when you're thick-headed and you learn slow.
You're right.
Yeah. I've always been that guy that learned better from my mistakes than from other people's mistakes.
The oddest thing about, again, I keep going back to this younger generation. I don't mean to beat up this generation so much. I just see it a lot. Is that they tend to be, they want to do something extremely quick in their mind, whether it be the Red Bulls or the energy drinks or the social media that triggers their mind that everything they have to do is fast.
Yes.
That the patience isn't there to do something.
Yep.
So they want to do everything fast, but if they actually slowed down and took the time to do anything, whatever it may be, you might be 6 months down the road and have success.
Yeah.
Right. But they're so fast. It's like they're fast, but you should be going a little bit slower.
I agree.
Chelsea and I, we got together 11, 12 years ago. And to your point of all the different relationships, like you learn from all that. Yeah. But I wasn't in a rush. Right. And my wife, Chelsea's amazing. Right. And it took all those years to figure out what I really wanted. And the success came because I waited.
Yeah.
Right. So back to that same point, it's like, be patient, but be consistent.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that my audience would want to know about you?
What do they want to know? I mean, I've tried to fill them in on a few different things. That's for sure. I mean, hey, Mike, I have no complaints. I mean, I live a great life.
You do.
Chelsea and we've got a great thing. I've done a lot of stuff.
Sweet lady. Great, beautiful family.
Yeah. She's wonderful. And, we get to do a lot of great things, Mike. I mean, it's like, there's a lot of stuff that took a long time to get to where I am. But I mean, man, I race cars. I've traveled the world. I own a bunch of different homes. I own a great business.
Cars.
Right. I've had all I have this great personal car collection of badass cars.
Yeah.
I mean, I push hard, but it's fun. It's fun.
You have pushed hard, and that's why you've been successful.
Yeah.
Your work ethic.
Yeah.
Your attention to detail.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of common sense too.
Right. Yeah.
What I know about you, I think
some people question it, but
that's okay. They can do that.
Right.
I think that helps a lot too.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for being on. I've enjoyed our friendship. Hopefully, we've got lots more really cool, fun things to do and see.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you'll get that rental thing going so I can drive.
Right. There you go.
I've still, I really, since I was a little kid and I had that Lamborghini Countach poster on my wall. That's been now I can do something a little bit, newer, but that has been a thing of mine.
That'll be fun.
Besides parking one when I was a valet, when I was like 19 years old, I've never driven a Lamborghini.
Right.
So I would like to.
There you go. You're not doing so bad yourself, Mike.
No.
In your Ferrari convertible. But,
no, I don't hate it. That was actually kind of an aha. That was the I made it moment for me. And it was silly. He was the little boy in me that always wanted a fancy sports car.
Yeah.
And the day that I come in and I paid cash for mine.
Yeah.
I went,
congrats.
Okay. And now I look at it every day in my garage.
Badass.
And I go, okay.
Yeah.
And I think about that sometimes when I'm stressed out and I have anxiety or I'm down or something, I'm fighting with my girlfriend or whatever. And I think, you know what, though? Look at that.
Right.
So there's literally a tangible
that's your
symbol.
Success right there.
It's a tangible symbol of relax.
Yeah.
You're doing fine.
Yeah.
Stop pushing. There's a point when you got to start slowing down.
Yeah.
And I think I'm finally there. And I think you helped me get there.
Right.
I get to look at that car every day.
Right.
Plus, it's a lot of fun to drive on the weekend.
Oh, it's a blast. And that's a big part of it, right? You've got to be able to enjoy all this hard work that you did, Mike. And then Ferrari's part of it.
You know what?
You know, and drive that Ferrari out to the lake or something.
Drive it out to my river house.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So cool.
Well, but as you know, that's really hard to do. It's hard to slow down. It's hard to cut yourself some slack.
Yeah.
When you've been programmed to always bust.
Like I just put my phone down for an hour, so you're welcome.
That is amazing because you don't even do that in the CEO meetings.
Right.
So I thank you very much.
Of course.
Listen, my friends, thank you for
here.
being on. I appreciate it. It was
Love
great hearing your story.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see the great things to come because I know there will be.
Oh yeah.
And I can't wait to walk through your showroom again because every time I do, I get a little bit excited.
Right.
And then start thinking about what's the next car.
Yeah. Lots of cool stuff.
Which is probably good for business.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
we
you, my
take
friend.
trade-ins.
Yes, I know you do, and you consign.
Right.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks
All right,
for being
buddy.
on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mike. Yeah.
Until next time, please connect with me on your favorite social media platform where you can follow me on my personal journey.